Imagine you've got 4 hours to get the shoot done. You haven't seen any of the locations. All you really have is a rough script and some shot ideas to go with. Well, that's the situation that I was in for this day in the life college student commercial. But I feel like a lot of it went well. So I want to break down all the things that went well and talk you through some of the things I wish I had improved on so that hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and the wins of the shoot as well. And this is the first in a series of retroactive shoot diaries is what I'm trying to call them. I don't know the exact name, but basically I'm wanting to break down the real shoots I've done with real clients and talk through some of my thought processes so that hopefully like you can gain some insight into how I'm making films and commercials for clients and ideally learn from the best parts of the process and also learn from the worst parts of my process. And I can improve and you can improve. Now, first things first, the gear. This whole film was shot on the Fuji X-H2S with the 12mm 7 Artisans T 2.9 lens. Now, this combo I think is just an incredible combo. I was shooting open gate for the majority of this with a variable ND on the front, and actually with the variable ND I was using, you get a little bit of lens vignette around the edges, and I really like that look. So that's the gear approach I took for this project. I also used some lighting. I had a 300C and some smaller lights. I brought multiple 300Cs, but I really only ended up using one 300C. So the first thing I want to talk about is this dorm room scene, which I think turned out the best out of all the scenes that we shot. And we were going across campus, shooting at all these different places that were important to the campus and the student experience. And some of them allowed for more control than others. And this dorm room was like a demo dorm room that they take potential students on. And so we were able to really hone in the look there. And basically all I had to do was black out the window with a little bit of black fabric, but also just like closing the blinds. And then I shot the 300C up into the ceiling with a blue color on it. So I think it was like actually just blue light. But then because of the lamps in the room, you got this really nice color contrast with the warm and the cool. Sure, the blue tone might have been a little overdone, but we wanted it to feel like nighttime, and I felt like kind of an over-exaggerated blue tone to the room would help with that look. There are a couple of shots here where you just only see the blue light on him, and I think in a perfect world, had I had more time to finesse this, I would have had some sort of smaller, warmer source that I'd be able to just key him with so that no matter where he is, you're getting some of that like warm lamplight that was present through some of the other shots, especially this shot with the alarm clock. Well, I guess it's the phone. Shot with the alarm on the phone where his hand grabs it. Like that's the perfect amount of contrast in my mind. I think I could have improved in terms of the wider shots where he's kind of walking around. So next is this bike mount shot. And what we really needed were just like some transitional moments between the students' everyday activities. And so to make that interesting, I went with a hard mounted shot on the bike. And I think shots like this, in my opinion, can kind of be the thing that separates your video from other people's, because if you can think through a unique shot, that takes your video just up another level in terms of, I guess, like the direction and the cinematography. It just has an elevated feel to it. Anytime you can say, okay, we got to capture these normal shots, but I want to have like a little extra finesse, some extra element to it. I find that just elevates the shoot. I try to do that with every single shoot that I have so that it kind of stands out a little bit. And I think that's where my artistic eye kind of comes out, is in those shots. But anyways, that was a spiel. The point is we needed this transitional element, hard mounted bike shot. All that is a super clamp and a small tripod head. The camera goes right onto it. And that's that. Now, you gotta be careful that you are risking your camera when you're doing this. A safety chain would be beneficial, and it makes the bike way heavier, so the balance of the bike is a little bit off. So I think the guy actually may have fallen once or twice, but he's all good, and the camera's all good. The camera didn't fall. But it is kind of cool because you get the shot of him with the Harding shirt on and the sky in the background. So it just is a fun transitional moment for the whole commercial and ties the whole thing together. Now, one of the benefits of shooting with this wide angle lens is that it's just gonna give you a really immersive feel. So I wanted to get all of the friends kind of coming in for a picnic. And so I set the camera in the grass, and luckily the grass was a little bit higher, so I was able to get some of the grass in that foreground, but then be focused on the kids that were sitting down for a picnic. And it's definitely a shot that you wouldn't be able to do if you were shooting on a tighter lens. But those are the things that went well, and I think there are other elements to the shoot that didn't go so well. For instance, we had to go and film in one of the chapel sessions that the college was having, and it wasn't a pretty room. there wasn't anything we could do to change the look of the room. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just not the best scenario. And it's hard with montage commercials, kind of like this one, especially one-man band, short timeline montage commercials, because in a perfect world, we could stage some of these things, but we didn't have time to do that or the personnel. So you really are just, you have to resort to filming the location as it is. And at that point, you're pretty much like subject to however the location looks. It wasn't an ugly room, it just doesn't translate well onto camera. That's set up as well as this classroom scene, which I also just wasn't the biggest fan of. It's just all the lights were on. I think had I had some extra gear, I could have had a lighting setup in that room, but I'll get into something later about the tools that I didn't have on this shoot that would have made it a lot better. And because of that, it didn't work out. Some of that's time constraints, some of it's not the right tools, but ultimately it's on me to make that situation better. So it's definitely something I'm thinking about going into the next shoots that I do. At the end of the day, it really is just an excuse. I don't want my client to not get as good of a video as they could if I could have just picked up another piece of gear or, brought another person on and got a little bit better of a quality. So definitely something for me to reflect on, maybe something for you to reflect on your shoots, I don't know. But it can be easy to do one-man band stuff and think that you're still achieving a really good result. I think with this montage commercial, there were some scenes that couldn't have looked any better. There were other scenes that, had I had more help, I could have achieved a little bit better result. So yeah, it's just all something to think about. One of my least favorite setups that we did was this library scene. And while I do like some of the compositions here, I kind of leaned into a symmetrical Wes Anderson element to some of these compositions. You can kind of see that throughout the other parts of the commercial as well, but specifically in the library, it just struck me as like a very symmetrical place. So that's what I was leaning into for a lot of this, but honestly, I didn't love how it turned out looking. I didn't bring any lighting in, and partially that's because there's just tons of people around. It felt like there wasn't really a ton we could do, but also the harsh reality is I just didn't have some of the right gear to make a room like that look nice. I mean, we were shooting like 6 students all in a group together. That takes a lot of gear to actually execute, and it just didn't work. I will also say though, this little chill area that we were filming in, the windows were tinted, and that's something that I can't stand when companies do that, because you get no natural light coming in, or you get very little natural light coming in through that window. So I really wish that the window hadn't been tinted so that I could kind of just have the natural light coming in. It would have created a pretty cool look, but you can't win them all. I do love though this stairwell shot. That was a fun composition I found when we walked in there. It turned out good. But the rest of the setup, it just wasn't my favorite. I think there's some things I could have brought more gear in and put more time into actually lighting it. But again, we go back to time. We got 4 hours. We got to hit like 10 locations. I can't light every single one. In a perfect world, you could have a little bit of a team. And the way I would structure that is we would set up the first scene together, and then I'd have kind of guidelines for the next scene, and I'd send the rest of the team to go light the second scene or the next scene, and they would have the lights set up by the time we get there with the camera and the talent. So then you can kind of flip-flop. So then they go back to the first scene, pack that up, go to the third scene while you're filming the second scene. When you get to the third scene, it just kind of leapfrogs that way. And that's how I would structure it if we had had a team for this shoot, but we didn't, and that's honestly part of it. So things I would like to improve. First of all, just the difference in the setups. I think that there is a production quality or production value difference. And in a perfect world, a commercial has the same production quality across the board. That's how I kind of look at it. But unfortunately for this one, there was some scenes that had great production quality in my opinion, and some that didn't have as good production quality. So I would ideally like to streamline that, make it all feel and look the same quality. I don't think that's something that the average client is going to notice, but I do think it's something that I notice as the cinematographer. It's definitely something that I want to look towards in the future. I also think that transporting gear across this, whole college campus was a very difficult part of the process. So I didn't have a cart at this point. So I was basically pulling around a Pelican case, but I had more gear in the car. So when we went to a location where I needed to light it, we would just have to pull the car up, walk a bunch of stuff in, whereas now I own an innovative cart, but it doesn't have to be an innovative cart. It could be any cart, And one of those little rock and rollers would work great in this scenario. But if I had a cart, I could have had all my gear with me the entire time. So when a scene came up that we needed to light, it wouldn't take the effort and time to bring all the gear in from the car. It would just already be with me on a cart. That's something that for these montage commercials, I'll modify and do differently in the future. Especially with the innovative cart, I'll have a whole kind of like office space that I can bring around with me with the lights that I need, my camera, some extra lenses, and it'll just be kind of like a workstation or command center, if you will. I don't know how many names I can come up with that like describe what the innovative cart does, but because it has that top table, it's just so beneficial to use and would make a shoot like this dramatically more effective and much easier. But I will say this, the things that went well about this shoot, obviously those first 3 scenes I talked about, I really enjoy how those scenes look. You got some of this tennis stuff at the end, which looks good. But really, it's those first 3 scenes that I really liked. I think those locations lended themselves to the best possible result. I also think the efficiency of the schedule was a win. We only had 4 hours, so to capture an entire montage commercial in 4 hours takes, a lot of effort and a lot of efficiency. So being able to get the shot, not overthink it, not fall into this perfectionist mindset, but just like lock in and get the shots you need in the best way you can in the moment, is kind of the motto for this. And I think that's something that I find can really make the client happy, because the last thing that the client wants is for something that they've scheduled to take 4 hours, taking 6 or even 8. Even though the product would have been a little bit better if I'd had 8 hours, if I take double the client's time that they were expecting, it's just not gonna go well. And I don't think the client is inevitably gonna be happy in that situation. And they're most likely not even gonna notice the slightly better image on the back end, or at least the clients I'm working with. When it comes to the gear that I think was a win, the 300C honestly was essential for this shoot. Now, full disclosure, Amaran has sent me the 300C. They sent me 2 actually for videos that I made on my Instagram. But I genuinely love the lights. I was going to buy one anyways. So it was just kind of convenient that they sent it to me. And I think that the 300C is this really nice balance between output and versatility, where you can get any sort of color or look that you want with the light, but you also have a decent amount of power, so you're not like up a creek when it comes to output. Dream World is a 600C. I think those are probably the pinnacle in terms of that output and versatility comparison, but they also just take up a lot more room, and they're not as easy to carry around. So definitely something to think about. If you're doing one-man band shoots, the 300C, in my opinion, is just like the go-to key light right now. And the last win, and I go back to it from the beginning of the video, the XH2S and the 12mm lens just made this whole shoot work. Like, the compelling aspect of these visuals really comes through that dynamic. So the wide angle combined with the open gate allowed me to get a really cool vertical frame, but also get my horizontal frame as well. And I don't know, I really like that combo. Getting a wide angle lens with a relatively low aperture, especially shooting open gate, I think is a pretty cool combo. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this shoot. Let me know if there's anything that you think could be improved on this shoot, or honestly, if you are finding yourself in similar situations, let me know any questions you might have, because hopefully I can answer it in a future shoot diary video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, let's get out there and make better films. I think I'm gonna start doing that at the end of videos. I think that's kind of cool.